The massive Kryvax warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a metallic leviathan, its obsidian surface reflecting the morning sun as it positioned itself above the United Nations headquarters in New York. General Sarah Chen stood at the window of her office in the Pentagon, her expression neutral despite the gravity of the situation. The aliens had arrived without warning, their fleet of 30 ships emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. Another ship just entered low Earth orbit, General. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera reported, his dark eyes fixed on the holographic display floating above his desk. That makes 31 capital ships in total. Chen nodded, her mind already racing through potential scenarios. 27 years of military service had prepared her for many things, but first contact with an alien civilization wasn't one of them. Yet here they were, facing what could be humanity's greatest challenge. The Kryvax had made their first broadcast just hours ago, their message transmitted simultaneously to every electronic device on Earth. Their ambassador, a towering figure with iridescent scales and multiple sets of eyes, had delivered their ultimatum with what could only be described as casual arrogance. People of Earth, the alien had declared, we are the Kryvax Empire, masters of 13 galaxies and guardians of the cosmic order. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of elevation. Submit to our protection, and we shall guide you into an age of unprecedented advancement. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate why no species has ever successfully opposed our will. The UN Security Council had convened immediately, and now Chen found herself preparing for a meeting that would determine the fate of humanity. As she made her way through the Pentagon's corridors, she couldn't help but notice the determined set of her officers' jaws, the steady hands on keyboards and tablets. There was no panic, no chaos, just the quiet efficiency of professionals doing their jobs. The secure conference room was already filled when she arrived. Military leaders from around the world participated via quantum-encrypted channels, their holograms seated alongside their physically present counterparts. The Kryvax ambassador's projection dominated the center of the room, its massive form somehow even more impressive in 3 dimensions. We trust you have had sufficient time to consider our generous offer, the ambassador began, its multiple voices creating an unsettling harmony. The Kryvax Empire has found that swift acceptance leads to the smoothest transition. We have questions, Chen stated, stepping forward. Your empire spans 13 galaxies, yet you choose to personally oversee the absorption of our single planet. Why? The ambassador's scales shifted color slightly, a gesture that Chen's xenobiologists would later identify as amusement. Your species intrigues us. Despite your primitive technology, you've managed to achieve a remarkable level of military organization. We believe you could serve as effective peacekeepers in this sector, once properly equipped and trained. Primitive. Chen allowed a hint of challenge to enter her voice. Perhaps you could elaborate on what you consider advanced. The ambassador gestured, and a series of holographic images appeared, showing what appeared to be energy weapons, force fields, and massive space-based weapons platforms. Your projectile weapons and chemical explosives are quaint relics. The Kryvax Empire fights its wars with precision and power. From orbit, we haven't engaged in primitive ground combat in over a millennium. Chen exchanged glances with her colleagues, a silent understanding passing between them. The aliens' arrogance was showing them something crucial, a weakness born of their own technological superiority. Then perhaps, Chen suggested carefully, you would be willing to demonstrate your superior combat capabilities, a controlled exercise to show us exactly what we're dealing with. The ambassador's scales rippled with what appeared to be satisfaction. An excellent suggestion. We will designate the suitable area for combat demonstration. You may deploy your best ground forces, and we will show you how the Kryvax wage war. To make it sporting, we will restrict ourselves to ground combat only, no orbital weapons. As the ambassador's hologram faded away, the room burst into hushed conversation. Chen remained silent, her mind already formulating plans. The aliens had just made their first critical mistake. They had forgotten that technology wasn't everything in warfare. Humanity had been fighting on the ground since before they invented the wheel, and they were about to teach the Kryvax Empire a lesson in respect. "General," her aide whispered, "they're expecting us to show them conventional warfare. Should we?" "No," Chen interrupted, a slight smile playing at her lips. "We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Contact all major military powers. Tell them Operation Groundwork is a go. The Kryvax Empire is about to learn why you don't challenge humans to the one form of warfare we've been perfecting since we first picked up rocks and sticks." As her officers rushed to comply with her orders, Chen turned back to the window, watching the alien ships hover like dark stars above the Earth. They thought they were dealing with primitives, but they were about to discover that sometimes the old ways were the deadliest. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that didn't officially exist, General Chen stood before a global holographic war room. Military leaders from every major nation on Earth watched as she outlined humanity's response to the Kryvax challenge. The underground chamber hummed with energy from quantum computers and advanced communication systems, technology that the aliens had no idea humans possessed. "The Kryvax have given us exactly what we need," Chen explained, manipulating the holographic display to show the designated combat zone, a stretch of seemingly unremarkable desert in Australia's outback. "They're so convinced of their superiority that they're blind to the possibility of deception." Captain Maya Patel, India's Special Forces representative, leaned forward in her holographic projection. "The surveillance data from their ships suggests they've completely bought into our primitive military facade. They haven't detected any of our subterranean facilities or quantum communication networks. Their arrogance will be their downfall," Colonel Viktor Petrov of the Russian Federation added, his hologram nodding in agreement. "The latest intel suggests they don't even wear armor below their waist. A species that abandoned ground combat centuries ago has forgotten the most basic principles of personal protection." Chen gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show the carefully orchestrated deception taking place across the globe. In various locations, military forces paraded outdated equipment and conducted obviously flawed training exercises, all under the watchful eyes of Kryvax observation drones. "Phase 1 is proceeding perfectly," she continued. "Our apparent disorganization and reliance on primitive weapons has convinced them that this will be an easy victory. Now, we move to Phase 2. The display changed again, showing the true extent of humanity's preparations. Hidden beneath the Australian desert's surface, the vast network of tunnels and bunkers had been rapidly constructed using classified boring technology. Similar facilities had been secretly established across the globe, connected by a web of quantum-encrypted communications. "The Kryvax expect us to meet them in open combat," Chen explained, highlighting key strategic positions. "They're anticipating tanks, traditional infantry, and predictable tactics. Instead, they're going to face something they've never encountered in all their millennia of space warfare: a fully integrated underground resistance force, using hybrid warfare techniques perfected through centuries of human conflict." Lieutenant Sarah O'Connor, representing the Australian Defence Force, spoke up. "Our deep ground sensors indicate they're completely unaware of the cavern networks. Their scanning technology is focused on surface and aerial detection. They never bothered to develop sophisticated underground surveillance. Because why would they?" Chen smiled grimly. "A species that fights from orbit never needed to worry about what's happening beneath their feet. We've spent thousands of years fighting in every possible terrain: mountains, deserts, jungles, and yes, underground." The holographic display shifted again, showing the specialized equipment and units that would be used in the coming battle. Next-generation combat suits designed for silent movement and maximum adaptability. Weapons that combine traditional ballistic effectiveness with cutting-edge technology. Most importantly, soldiers trained in warfare techniques that the Kryvax couldn't possibly anticipate. "Each of your units knows their role," Chen continued. "The Kryvax will see exactly what they expect to see: Primitive human forces fighting exactly as their historical data suggests we would. Meanwhile, our real forces will be moving into position through the underground network. Colonel Wei Zong of the Chinese People's Liberation Army raised a point that was on everyone's mind. And if they detect our deception, they won't, Chen replied confidently. Their entire military doctrine is built on the assumption that inferior species fight in predictable ways. They'd forgotten something crucial about humans. We are anything but predictable. The meeting continued as the military leaders refined their plans, each adding their nation's unique expertise to the strategy. Above them, Kryvax ships continued their orbital patrol, their crews completely unaware that they were being drawn into an elaborate trap. In the Australian desert, the final preparations were being made. Decoy forces conducted obvious and ineffective drills while the real army moved silently beneath the earth. The Kryvax had chosen this battlefield thinking it would be the site of their easy victory. Instead, it would become the graveyard of their imperial ambitions. As the meeting concluded, Chen received word that the Kryvax command ship had transmitted their battle plans to their ground forces. The aliens had analyzed human military tactics exactly as expected, preparing counters to strategies that humanity had no intention of using. They think they're facing the armies of today, Chen remarked to her assembled colleagues. Instead, they're about to face every lesson humanity has learned from every war we've ever fought. Let them come with their advanced technology and their orbital supremacy. We'll show them why you never underestimate a species that has turned warfare into an art form. The trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait for the Kryvax to spring it. Dawn broke over the Australian desert as the Kryvax landing ships descended through the atmosphere, their crystalline hulls catching the first rays of sunlight. From her underground command center, General Chen watched through quantum-linked drones as the alien ground forces deployed. The sight would have been intimidating to anyone who hadn't spent months preparing for this exact moment. The Kryvax combat units emerged from their vessels with mechanical precision. Their battle walkers, towering 3 stories high, moved with surprising grace across the desert sand. Energy weapons hummed with barely contained power, and their infantry, if they could be called that, wore powered armor that made them look more like mobile weapons platforms than soldiers. All units maintained position, Chen ordered through the quantum network. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they know exactly what they're facing. On the surface, a small contingent of traditional human forces waited in obviously defensive positions. Old model tanks, conventional infantry, and outdated anti-aircraft batteries. Everything the Kryvax would expect from a primitive military force. The aliens took the bait completely. Pitiful humans, the Kryvax commander's transmission boomed across all frequencies. Witness true military might. Your surrender will be accepted after this demonstration. The alien forces moved forward in perfect formation, their tactical displays no doubt showing them exactly where each human unit was positioned. What those displays didn't show was what waited beneath the surface. Thousands of Special Forces operators in next-generation combat suits, hidden in a labyrinth of tunnels and bunkers. The first phase of the alien attack went exactly as planned. Their walker units engaged the decoy forces with overwhelming firepower, their energy weapons turning outdated tanks into molten slag. The Kryvax commander's satisfaction was evident in his next transmission. You see, your primitive armor is useless against our. The transmission cut off as the real battle began. Across the battlefield, sections of desert sand suddenly collapsed, revealing hidden pit traps that swallowed several walker units whole. Before the aliens could react, precision charges detonated in the pits, targeting the walkers' legs, their weakest points. All units, execute Operation Earthbound, Chen commanded. Show them how humans really fight. From hidden tunnel exits, Special Forces teams emerged using grappling systems that the Kryvax sensors registered too late. The aliens had focused their scanning technology on detecting energy weapons and large metal signatures, never considering that humans might attack from below with what appeared to be simple rope and cable. The Kryvax infantry, so impressive in their powered armor, discovered too late that they had no close combat protocols. Their energy weapons, devastating at range, proved unwieldy in the close quarters that human forces forced them into. Centuries of orbital warfare had left them unprepared for the brutally intimate nature of ground combat. They're attempting to call for orbital support, Lieutenant O'Connor reported from her forward position. But our quantum jamming is working. They can't reach their ships. The alien forces began to show the first signs of disorganization. Their perfect formations broke down as human forces seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with devastating effect, and disappear back into hidden tunnels. The Kryvax had no doctrine for this kind of warfare. Their combat algorithms couldn't predict an enemy that refused to fight according to their expectations. A Kryvax walker, its leg joints damaged by precisely placed explosives, toppled into another unit. The aliens had never considered the need for anti-tipping protocols in their walkers. Why would they, when they'd never fought an enemy that would think to attack the legs rather than the heavily armored main body? "Sir," Captain Patel's voice crackled through the quantum net, "we're seeing signs of panic in their ranks. They're actually trying to retreat to higher ground. They think height will protect them from our primitive attacks." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. The Kryvax were learning the hard way that humanity's primitive warfare techniques were anything but primitive. Each tactic they employed had been refined through thousands of years of combat experience, perfected in countless conflicts across every type of terrain imaginable. The alien commander's next transmission showed the first signs of uncertainty. This is not possible. Your technology level, your tactics. You made a fundamental mistake, Chen replied, breaking radio silence for the first time. You looked at our technology and assumed you knew everything about how we fight. You forgot that warfare isn't about having the biggest guns. It's about knowing how to use whatever weapons you have to their maximum effect. As if to emphasize her point, another section of the battlefield seemed to come alive. Hidden doors in the desert floor opened, revealing automated defense turrets that targeted the gaps in the Kryvax armor. Gaps that existed because the aliens had never expected anyone to get close enough to exploit them. The alien forces began a disorganized retreat, their perfect formation completely shattered. Their walker units, those that could still move, tried to provide covering fire, but they were firing at shadows and empty desert, while the real attacks came from behind and below. All units, proceed to Phase 2, Chen ordered. Show them why humanity has survived every threat we've ever faced. The true battle for Earth was about to begin, and the Kryvax Empire was learning a lesson that would shake their confidence to its core. Never underestimate a species that had turned warfare into an art form through millennia of practice. The Australian desert had become a graveyard of Kryvax military pride. Their damaged walkers lay scattered across the battlefield like fallen giants, while their infantry units had retreated to defensive positions that offered little actual defense against humanity's unconventional warfare tactics. But General Chen knew this was just the beginning. All global units, commence Operation Thunderstrike. She commanded through the quantum network. Across the planet, humanity's real military might emerge from hiding. In the Siberian wilderness, Russian special forces teams that had been masquerading as primitive military units suddenly revealed their true capabilities. They emerged from camouflaged mountain bunkers in advanced exoskeletons designed for close-quarter combat, engaging Kryvax forces that had never trained for fighting in dense forest terrain. Target their sensor arrays. Colonel Petrov's voice came through crystal clear on the quantum network. Their combat systems are completely dependent on long-range detection. They don't know how to fight blind. In the Amazon rainforest, Brazilian and Colombian joint forces demonstrated why fighting in triple canopy jungle required more than advanced technology. The Kryvax walkers, so impressive in open terrain, found themselves tangled in vines and unable to track targets through the dense vegetation. Their energy weapons, designed for long-range engagement, set fire to the canopy above them. creating smoke screens that only the human forces were prepared to fight through. They're trying to regroup in urban areas, Captain Puddle reported from New Delhi. They think our primitive weapons can't penetrate their shield technology. She paused, and Chen could hear the smile in her voice. They haven't figured out that we're not trying to penetrate their shields at all. The Kryvax had built their entire defensive doctrine around energy shields that could stop any conventional attack. What they hadn't considered was that humans had spent centuries figuring out ways to defeat technologically superior opponents. In major cities across the globe, their shield generators were failing, not from direct attacks, but from precisely calibrated sonic pulses that disrupted their power distribution systems. Shanghai sector secured, Colonel Wei reported. Their command and control structure is completely disrupted. They have no protocols for fighting without central coordination. This was the fatal flaw in the Kryvax military doctrine. Centuries of technological superiority had led them to create a rigid, centralized command structure. When human forces targeted their communication systems with quantum-based interference, their entire military machine began to break down. In the skies above Earth, the Kryvax fleet watched in growing confusion as their ground forces were systematically dismantled by what they had dismissed as a primitive species. Their attempts to provide orbital support were thwarted by a web of quantum interference that they couldn't even detect, let alone counter. General, Lieutenant O'Connor's voice cut through the tactical chatter. We're detecting energy signatures consistent with their teleportation technology. They're trying to evacuate their ground forces. Right on schedule, Chen responded. Activate the quantum entanglement fields. Across the battlefield, Kryvax soldiers found their teleporters malfunctioning. Humanity had spent months studying the quantum signatures of their transportation technology, developing countermeasures that the aliens never thought possible from a primitive species. The Kryvax commander's next transmission carried an edge of desperation. This is impossible. Your species, your level of technology. Did you really think, Chen replied, that we would show you our true capabilities before the battle began? You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed what we wanted you to believe. That's the first lesson of warfare that humanity learned. Deception is often more powerful than direct force. In the Nevada desert, Chinese and American forces demonstrated another lesson the Kryvax had forgotten: the value of combined arms warfare. While alien forces focused on defending against high-tech attacks, simple kinetic weapons struck from unexpected angles. Electromagnetic pulses, designed to look like primitive nuclear effects, shut down the sophisticated targeting systems of their walker units. All units proceed to final phase, Chen ordered. Show them why humanity has never been successfully conquered. The coordinated assault that followed was unlike anything the Kryvax had faced in their 1,000 years of interstellar conquest. Human forces struck from above and below, using a combination of advanced technology and traditional combat techniques that their enemy couldn't predict or counter. Military satellites, hidden in debris fields the aliens had dismissed as space junk, suddenly activated, unleashing precise electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Kryvax's remaining communication systems. On the ground, Special Forces teams used centuries-old guerrilla warfare tactics enhanced by cutting-edge technology, striking at weak points that the aliens didn't even know they had. As the sun set on the first day of humanity's counterattack, the Kryvax Empire faced a humbling reality. They had not only underestimated humanity's military capabilities, they had fundamentally misunderstood what made humans such effective warriors. It wasn't just about technology or tactics. It was about adaptation, creativity, and the accumulated wisdom of countless conflicts fought across every conceivable terrain. The battle for Earth was turning, and the Kryvax Empire was about to learn the true cost of their arrogance. The Kryvax flagship hung motionless in Earth's orbit, its once imposing silhouette now serving as a testament to the folly of underestimating humanity. In the Pentagon's main conference room, General Chen faced the Kryvax Supreme Commander, not as a defeated primitive, but as the representative of a force that had fundamentally changed the Empire's understanding of warfare. "Your victory," the Supreme Commander spoke, his multiple voices carrying a note of humility that would have been unthinkable days ago, "was instructive. We have ruled the stars for a millennium, yet we fail to understand the most basic principle of combat." "Which is?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. "That true military prowess isn't measured by technological superiority alone." The alien commander's scales had lost their previous luster, dulled by the weight of defeat. "In all our centuries of conquest, we had forgotten what it means to be truly tested in combat." Holographic displays showed the aftermath of humanity's victory. Across the globe, Kryvax walker units lay disabled, their advanced technology defeated by tactics that drew from thousands of years of human military experience. Their surviving forces had surrendered not just to superior strategy, but to a fundamental truth about warfare that their empire had forgotten. "We studied your history," the Supreme Commander continued, gesturing to data streams flowing across the room's displays. "Not just your recent military activities, but all of it. Your species has fought more wars among itself than most civilizations have fought against external threats. Each conflict, each battle, taught you something new." "War," Chen responded, "has been humanity's harshest teacher. But it's also taught us the importance of peace and the wisdom to know when to offer it." The implications of her words weren't lost on the Kryvax commander. His species had grown complacent, relying on technological superiority rather than true military wisdom. They had forgotten that warfare was an art form that required more than just advanced weapons and tactical algorithms. "Our empire's military doctrine will need to be completely revised," he acknowledged. "Your species has demonstrated that true combat effectiveness comes from adaptation, creativity, and the wisdom gained from actual battlefield experience." Across the room, military leaders from around the world watched silently. They had achieved more than just victory. They had earned the respect of a species that had dismissed them as primitives mere days ago. "We would propose a new arrangement," the Supreme Commander said, his posture shifting to what human xenologists recognized as a gesture of deep respect. "Not as conquerors or protectors, but as allies. Your species has much to teach us about the true nature of warfare, and perhaps about the wisdom of avoiding it when possible." Chen studied the alien commander carefully. The change in the Kryvax's attitude wasn't just diplomatic posturing. It was a fundamental shift in their understanding of military power. They had arrived expecting to find primitives playing at warfare. Instead, they had encountered a species that had turned combat into an art form through millennia of practice and adaptation. "Your empire has technology we could benefit from," Chen acknowledged, "and we have experience your forces could learn from. But any alliance would need to be one of equals." The Supreme Commander's scales shifted to a color that indicated agreement. "The Kryvax Empire has not had an equal in 1,000 years. Perhaps that is exactly what we have needed." As the formal negotiations began, Chen reflected on the irony of the situation. The Kryvax had arrived intending to teach humanity about advanced warfare. Instead, they had learned a lesson that would reshape their entire civilization. That true military might comes not from technological superiority, but from the accumulated wisdom of countless battles fought across time and terrain. In the days that followed, Earth's nations began sharing their military knowledge with their new allies. The Kryvax learned about guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat, and the importance of adaptability in military planning. In return, they shared their advanced technology, but with a new understanding of its limitations. The story of humanity's victory over the Kryvax Empire would be told across the galaxy, not as a tale of primitive defiance, but as a lesson in the true nature of warfare. It served as a reminder that no matter how advanced a civilization becomes, they should never forget the fundamental principles of combat that humanity had learned through blood and fire over thousands of years. As the sun set on this new era of human Kryvax cooperation, General Chen stood at her familiar window in the Pentagon, watching Kryvax ships now peacefully sharing Earth's orbit with human vessels. They had arrived as would-be conquerors, but they were leaving as allies who had learned a priceless lesson. Never underestimate a species that had turned warfare into an art form through the harshest teacher of all experience.